Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
You are watching a Fact TV presentation of the Village of Saxtons River Trustees Meeting.
Good evening. Welcome to the annual meeting of the Village of Saxtons River. I'm your chair, Amy Howlett, and I'll be very brief. Exits are wherever the red signs are. Bathrooms are on the first floor, and I hope you already found the elevator if you need elevators. Could I have everyone who is a registered voter of the Village of Saxtons River put your hand up? Does that look like 20?
If you live in the village, you can put your yeah.
Thank you. If you're not a registered voter, welcome. Just remind us when you speak and ask the moderator if you have permission to speak. We're happy to have you here, but this is a meeting where only the registered voters get to vote. Exits, counting. I think we're ready to proceed with Article 1. So Article 1 is the election of the moderator. I will open nominations for the one-year position of moderator, currently held by Guy Payne. Peter?
I'll make Guy Payne.
Okay, is there a second to that nomination? And you are? Susie Peters. Sorry, I don't see very well without my glasses.
Don't feel bad.
Are there any further nominations? So this is the appropriate time to say that Guy does not want to be one of those moderators that has to die for the position to pass on. That is a local tradition, both here in the village and in Rockingham. So put your muscles on and think about who's going to run next year. We have only one nomination for the moderator.
Motion to close nominations.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close the nominations. And I will direct the clerk to cast one ballot for Guy Payne. Okay. Arms out. Sorry, Guy.
That's Ryan's. We'll see. Let's play a little bit by ear. All of a sudden, look around.
Thanks, everyone. To begin, though, as tradition, I'd like to bring into memory those who have passed, who have been residents of Saxtons River, who have been neighbors.
Guy, I'm going to give you this list to make sure you've got the amended one.
Oh, actually, I already had. Yes. Pearl Bonnet, Elizabeth Campbell Comack, Ruby Cushman, Mary Hayward, Jim Kelly, James McCaffrey, Carol McGinnis, Susan Wilkins, and John Wood. We just have a moment of silence on this. Thank you.
Okay.
Article 2, to hear the reports of the trustees, treasurer, auditors, fire department, fast squad, tax collector, wastewater treatment plant, recreation center, Saxons River Park Committee, and Wyndham County Sheriff.
Mr. Moderator, I move to approve the reports of the trustees,
treasurer, the auditors, the fire department, the fast squad, the tax collector, the wastewater treatment plant, the recreation center, the Saxtons River Park Committee, and the Wyndham County Sheriff, and including the minutes of the 2022 annual meeting as written.
Thank you. Is there a second? Peter?
Oh.
Are there any additions, questions, comments about the reports?
It's a proper time to ask a few things. There's a budget article on here, and I speak to that, but I don't know if this is the proper place that I think that.
So you have comments, but you want to make the comments on the budget?
I had some questions, but I mean, if everybody wants to follow along, the new sheets up there. The only thing I have on that, on the thing is, looking at the expenses on number 4, the fast squad, line number 4. We budgeted $2,300 and to date they've only spent $20, which means in 5 months, they've got almost $2,480 to spend. I don't know if there's some postings that haven't been completed yet, off of warrants that haven't approved.
Well, the year to date is as of beginning of February.
I know, so.
The year-to-date expenses are as of February 6th. So there could be, and I don't know if there are, but there could be significantly more.
Oh, I know, I mean, through the process, I know the treasurer and everything else has been vacated and things, that there may be some postings that haven't been done. So I would just making that point, but.
So I'm getting the reminder from Louise, you're welcome to come up and use the mic. Just make sure you hold it near your mouth so that it really transmits sound.
Including the board.
Including Carl Ball.
Okay, I'm going to be running around again, or you folks would.
Make them run.
Ellen?
I can speak loud enough. Question about the last year's budget, and that actually affects this year's budget. The insurance line, the thing on the back of the proposed budget says the insurance includes the fire department, and some other things are listed. And I also know the wastewater treatment insurance is in their own budget. But does that insurance include the Saxtons River Rec area? Does it include the trout ponds? It's not listed and as being included in that line, in that little explanation. So I'm just wondering if it includes those other properties.
I can verify that for you, Ellen. My understanding is that there is a general coverage of the rec area, but I don't actually know about the fishing derby, unless that's considered part of the rec area.
Well, no, if you look at the tax map shows it as separate property, but it shows it as being owned by Saxtons River Village. And there is liability issues, of course, when you've got activity going on.
Sure.
And just owning it and its
Yep.
proximity to the road. So I think it's pretty important to make sure there is coverage if there is not.
Proximity to roads, children, and ponds, all those things, absolutely. Good point, and I will check. I don't have the policy with me, and I'm still
Yeah,
relatively new to understanding it.
And the new park, that's also not listed. The park across the street, that's not listed, so that should be checked to see if the park is also included now in what the VLCT has for village
Coverage.
properties and what
Yep.
they're covering.
Okay, thanks for the question.
Just to continue.
Let me just make sure, any other questions before we go back to Peter?
Hey, on the report, Bill's report. Page 24. That's the financial report for 21-22. You look at the very last line there, it says capital reserve 2,000, then it says actual expenses 1128.74. But then you go to the last column, so you still have the $2,000 there, so if you didn't spend it, then that will add to your, cash on hand going forward. So somebody might wanna look that up.
Someone on the board have an answer to Peter's question?
Not a question, just a point of information that it's not affecting the budget that we would be voting on tonight, but it's something that could create some.
Okay, you're alerting the board to the issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also on page 29. But everything else, the budget's fine. If you look at the bottom two paragraphs, wastewater treatment plant cash on hand, I think the dates are a little reversed. I think the cash on hand of 189, 338.37 should have the date of 6/30, and then the 7/1 should go down at the lower figure, 134, because you're taking expenses off. So, and then you go down to the next one, where you got WWTP reserve 10,337.13. I can't figure out where that number came from, because you've been putting 17,500 into that reserve. So it said it was transferred in 22-23. And note 1, if you look at the upper page there, it's got capital reserve, as I mentioned, 17.5. Note 1, and it says the same thing. It was transferred in 22-23. So it's just a little confusing trying to figure out where the money was shifted around. That's all.
Okay, do you want some clarification? If someone on the board has an answer to that, or you're simply
They have
alerting,
them,
or you're simply alerting?
You know, going on, they might want to look into it before it gets straightened out, before they get further confused.
Okay.
I don't know if this answers your question.
Yeah,
but at the-
get the mic.
He can hear me.
I can hear it fine.
No, everybody needs to hear it. So put it right up close.
At the time that we were working out the village budgets, the money had not yet been transferred into the capital reserve for the wastewater treatment
I
plant.
saw that, looking at the sheets, correct, but I wasn't sure what you were trying to convey there. And the number didn't add up, the 10,003 wasn't the same as the 17.5, so it was just, and I can't find that $10,337 anywhere in any of the figures, so.
I can't speak for Sarah as to where the
Yeah,
figures came
no
from.
problem, I'm just pointing out that it's
Yeah,
difficult to follow the trail, I guess, so follow the paper trail.
Where did you see 17.5?
Pardon?
Where did you see 17.5? Well, 1700, where's the 17?
It's on all the budgets, any of the budget figures, you can see it's $17,500, they've all posted. But, and then there's, one of the sheets in the financial sheet for 21-22, they showing $10,337 as being transferred, but I can't find out if it's $17,500 they're putting in and transferring that year to year, then how do they do the $10,000? Just, it's just probably a slip of the pick or something there.
Just a reminder to everybody that comments from the audience come to me, not to someone else within the audience. That's okay, Amanda. No problem.
One more, going back to page 24, if you look at the heat line, I think, somebody slipped a bit on there and, they had $6,500 budgeted. And it shows $639.97, but I believe there's an 8 missing on the front. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in the whole $2,200.
Okay, let's hold. Yes.
So if you have the corrected figures, Peter's correct, it is an $8,000 that we eliminated. Some of this may be my problem of trying to transfer from one format to another, but Sarah provided corrected figures. Sarah Campbell is our treasurer, and she is out of the country at this moment. But she provided the corrected figures that are in the handout up here.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right, let's go for a vote. It has been moved to approve the reports of the trustees, treasurer, auditors, fire department, fast squad, tax collector, wastewater treatment plant, recreation center, Saxons River Park Committee, and Wyndham County Sheriff as printed, including the minutes of the 2022 annual meeting. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is passed. Okay. Moving on to Article 3. Article 3, to select the following officers to wit: 3 trustees, treasurer, tax collector, collector of delinquent taxes, clerk, and 3 auditors. Nominations are now open for the position of trustee for a 2-year term currently held by Amy Howlett, who is seeking re-election. I'm gonna kill myself.
Mr. Moderator, I nominate Amy Howlett for the position of village trustee for a term of 2 years.
Second.
Second. Flo was second. Any other nominations?
Move to close nominations.
Is there a second to close nominations? Where did that come from? I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Catherine Despot.
Catherine, okay. That's fine. Okay. All those in favor of closing nominations?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed, and I direct the clerk to cast 1 vote for Amy Howlett.
Okay.
Nominations are now open for the position of trustee for a 2-year term currently held by Matt Brennan, who is seeking re-election.
Mr. Moderator. Sorry.
I think I'm going to stand here.
Mr. Moderator, I nominate Matt Brennan for the position of village trustee for a term of 2 years.
Second.
Peter, second. Any other nominations?
Nominations closed.
Okay. All those in favor of closing nominations, say aye. Close. Or opposed. Okay. I will direct the clerk to cast 1 vote for Matt Brennan. Okay, nominations are now open for the position of trustee for a 1-year term currently held by Rick Holloway. Okay.
I'm about to raise my hand.
I have no idea what's going on. Who is not seeking re-election? David?
Mr. Moderator, I nominate Kristen Swartout for the position of village trustee for a term of 1 year.
Is there a second?
Oh, second it, please.
Ben Wallace.
Move to close nominations.
Okay. All those in favor of closing nominations, raise your hand or say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nominations are closed, and I direct the clerk to cast 1 vote. For Kristen.
Yeah. Stand up. Stand up, Lauren,
Did I miss
stand up.
something?
Kristen, they want you to
They
stand
want you
up.
to stand up.
All right, nominations are now open for the position of treasurer for a 1-year term currently held by Sarah Campbell, who is not seeking re-election.
I get this. Mr. Moderator. I nominate Anessa Muse for the position of village treasurer for a term of 1 year.
For a second. Peter? Second, okay. Any other nominations? All those in favor of closing nominations, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I confirm that the position is now, or cast one vote for, who we doing?
And that's
Another news. Nominations are now open for the position of tax collector for a one-year term currently held by Sarah Campbell, who is not seeking re-election.
Mr. Moderator, I nominate Inessa Muse for the position of village tax collector for the term of 1 year.
Is there a second?
Well, secondly, point of information, I don't think the treasurer can be the tax collector or delinquent tax collector by statute, I think. I think she sent an email out on that.
So I did look into this with the League of Cities and Towns, and I think the person can be treasurer and tax collector, but not delinquent tax collector. We don't have anybody running for delinquent tax collector, and I'll be honest, Sarah Campbell did all three. So, you know, that's the way we've been doing it. It's also a lot for any one person to do, but we have nobody who's indicated they're interested. So you have a minute to think about that.
Abigail has seconded the nomination. Any other nominations?
Move to close nominations.
Okay. Is there a second to close nominations?
Second.
Peter? All those in favor of closing nominations? Aye. Opposed? The clerk is asked to cast one vote for Inessa Muse. As Amy said, you had 1 minute to think of a collector of delinquent taxes.
Will you define the role?
So I'm happy to defer to anyone who's done this. I've talked to Connie Lancaster, who did it for a while. So if you are a delinquent, if you have not paid your taxes on time, there is a complicated formula which involves recalculating interest. We offer training with the League of Cities and Towns. If we need to, we're happy to find you a mentor. It is not as time consuming as tax collector or treasurer, but it requires focus and math and good organizational skills. We do have up-to-date software and an up-to-date laptop now. That was not always true, but of course those will be primarily in the hands of the treasurer and tax collector. So we would be very happy to have someone run for this position and provide as much support as we can. But that's where we are.
Was that just a question for clarification?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me repeat, nominations are now open for the position of collector of delinquent taxes for 1 year term currently held by Sarah Campbell, who is not seeking re-election. Hearing none, I think we'll turn it to the trustees to begin exploring and appoint somebody. Okay. Nominations are now open for the position of village clerk for a 1 year term currently held by Carl Ball, who is seeking re-election.
Mr. Moderator, I nominate Carl Ball for the position of village clerk for a term of 1 year.
Is there a second for Carl? Flo?
Yes.
Okay. Any other nominations?
Move to close nominations.
Close nominations. All those in favor of closing nominations, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Declare nominations closed, and Carl cast one vote.
For your
for Carl, for yourself. I didn't get it until everyone else was laughing. Okay. Nominations are now open for the position of auditor for a one-year term currently held by Peter Bergstrom, who is seeking re-election.
Mr. Moderator, I nominate Peter Bergstrom for the position of auditor for a term of 1 year.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right.
Move to close nominations.
Nominations? All those in favor of closing nominations, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Carl, casting one vote. Nominations are now open for the position of auditor for one-year term currently held by Teresa Spear, who is seeking re-election.
Mr. Moderator, I nominate Teresa Spear for the position of auditor for a term of 1 year.
Is there a second? Okay, Margaret? All right. Any other nominations?
Move to close nominations.
Okay. All those in favor of closing nominations, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carl cast one vote for Teresa Spear. While the warning does not list a third auditor, by the village, we would like to have a third auditor. It's in the, I'm assuming, the bylaws. We will handle this at Article 7 on the non-financial matters. Also, just a moment.
Ready, back to the warrant now.
Yeah. So, Article 4?
Yes.
Okay, Article 4. Article 4, to see if the voters will vote to assess a tax on the grand list of the village for general operating expenses, the indebtedness of the village, and interest for the ensuing year, and if so, how much?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the village voters approve a general fund budget of $64,987.86 with $60,550 to be raised by taxes.
Is there a second? Peter?
I'll second.
Okay.
Carl,
Carl, do you
that's
want?
not the figure you gave us.
No, let's read it.
That's a type.
The script has a typo.
The script has a type.
Okay.
The script has a type.
Okay.
Carl, are there points you want to make with regard to your proposal?
I think I take questions first.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Any questions with regard to the budget? Yes, I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
I'm Laura Wolf. I moved into Mary Hepburn's house. That's the easiest way to say it. So I haven't been here that long. What's the grand list? What is the grand list?
The grand list is the grand list is the list of property, taxable property in the village. And the owners of each parcel.
All right, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Ben?
What was the figure that we're voting on? If you could just repeat that.
The total budget, $64,987.86, of which $60,550 to be raised by taxes. You need to refer to the corrected handout because there was a typographical error in the figures printed in the budget.
Elena?
Nicole Coda. I was just curious, how do we propose that we enforce this? How will it be applied?
To raise them.
Yeah, how will it be raised? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, you'll get a tax bill in the mail.
Just curious.
So, when the town listers finish, the grand list, and they will give me a listing of how much the list for the village is, how much the total value of the village is, and we will, divide that by the, we will figure how much everybody, how much we have to raise per $1,000, I think it is, of town valuation. And then the town will print out the tax bills for us, and you'll get it in the mail from our treasurer.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, what's,
And if you don't pay that bill, that's when you'll hear from the collector of delinquent tax.
No, we don't.
Peter?
Just so to make things a little easier going forward, we just adopted a budget and the amount of taxes to be, amount of money to be raised by taxes. But if you look at Article 4, it's asking us to assess the tax number. So no matter what the budget is, if we want to pay only 20 cents taxes, that's what they're asking us to do on Article 4. Just going forward, it might be better if you did, as Carl said, to adopt a budget of 64,987 with the amount of such and such to be raised by taxes. With that figure balances. Then you guys set, as Carl just explained, set the tax rate when the listers around April 1st finish their grand lists.
All right. I'm assuming the board will take that into consideration for next year. Any other questions, comments with regard to the budget? Okay. Before we vote, so the message before us is to see, Carl, you're gonna have to give me those numbers. Okay. Better go to two different sheets.
Yeah,
To see if the voters will vote to assess a tax on the grand list of the village for general operating expenses, the indebtedness of the village, and the interest for the ensuing year. If so, for how much? And it was moved that it would be $64,987.86, with $60,550 to be raised by taxes. All those in favor? Say aye. Opposed? Motion passed. On to Article 5. Article 5, to see what action the voters will take in relation to the collection of taxes.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the voters authorize the tax collector and the collector of delinquent taxes to take whatever legal action is necessary for the collection of taxes.
Is there a second? Peter?
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Peter Bergstrom. Any questions, comments with regard to the motion? All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion has passed. Article 6 is borrowing. Article 6, to see if the voters will authorize the treasurer, subject to the approval of the trustees, to borrow money if necessary to pay the current operating expenses of the village prior to the collection of taxes.
I move that the voters authorize the treasurer, subject to the approval of the trustees, to borrow money if necessary to pay the current operating expenses of the village prior to the collection of taxes.
Is there a second? Somebody, Ben. All right, any questions? David?
Have we ever had to borrow money to pay any bills? Not that I know. Okay, just in case.
It's the normal housekeeping stuff that's
Gotcha.
done.
Gotcha.
all around. Any other questions, comments? All right. So the question before us?
This also covers authorization for internal borrowing. If we need to move money from one fund to another, from the reserve to the current expenses, this allows the treasurer to do that as well.
I'm safe over here now. Okay, Article 6, to see if the voters will authorize the treasurer, subject to the approval of the trustees, to borrow money, if necessary, to pay the current operating expenses of the village prior to the collection of taxes. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is passed. We're going to Article 7, which is a article on non-financial matters. To transact any other business prior to be brought before the meeting.
So I know that this part of the meeting is non-binding. It is up to the treasurers the trustees who you have elected to make any appointments for vacancies. But I would like a sense of the meeting for us to appoint Meg Lucas as our third auditor. It's great to have 3 auditors. We may do with 2 for the last year, but I worry if someone gets sick, it puts an awful lot of responsibility on one person. So I think what I'd like, Mr. Moderator, if you would ask for a show of approval for Meg Lucas as our third auditor.
There's been a request for a show of hands for Meg Lucas to be an auditor. Please raise your hands. Okay. It's a sign from the trustees. I think in fairness, would there be any other recommendations? If not, the trustees have seen what the answer is. Any other business that you would like to bring before the trustees and the citizens?
I have a question. I just wonder about the ARPA funding. What's happening with that? How decisions are being made?
Does somebody else on the board want to take this one? Okay. So this is, oh brother, American Recovery Plan Act, ARPA funding. Funds which are given to every municipality across the country. They're federal funds. It looked like they were extremely restricted initially, and then word came down that they could be used as any funds any funds under the control of the village trustees, with some exceptions. So if you're thinking, whoa, chance to pay down the wastewater treatment plant, that's one of the exceptions. The figures are in the handout. And in fact, we've just filed our second accounting of those figures. weirdly enough, we thought we knew exactly what we were getting, but 2 towns in Windham County said they did not want their federal funds, and those funds were reallocated. It's a very small amount, but the total of our funds as of March 31st, which was the date when we filed our last report, is $148,910.77. There was a big community process, I'm sure some of you attended it, held in Rockingham, because each municipality has its own funds. So this 148,000 plus, that's just for Saxtons River. And so far we have spent it on 2 unanticipated sources. When we reported it as one fire and rescue project. So we spent $2,585 on new reporting software for the rescue squad. So this was an extremely unpleasant surprise for us that reports have to be submitted through an online process, and the cheap software that we've been using for years is no longer acceptable. So Nick Cushman came to the trustees and said, can you dig up this amount? And we said, you know, this sounds like the kind of thing we should do with ARPA. Nick thinks that we can get Rockingham to pick up the annual renewal cost now that we've paid the upfront cost. The second amount, which we have obligated but not spent, is $92,085. And Art Smith can speak to this, but we made the decision, or Nat Brennan for that matter, we made the decision to purchase a new chassis to go under the 4-wheel drive rescue vehicle that attends every fire. So again, it's an old vehicle. It was rusting out. We didn't see how we could buy a new one. These things cost an arm and a leg. So we made the decision to spend it on this. Some of the things that came out of that Rockingham discussion included a boiler for urgent care for the greater Rockingham area services. They're looking to move to a wood-fired boiler, and they would like support. Main Street Arts asked for support. Anybody else remember? It seems to me there were 2 other. Support for the walking bike path from Rockingham to Saxtons River. And I think there was a 4th item, housing. Was there some way to put the money into a housing project? So we still have funds to spend, and we would be very happy to take feedback from the audience here or during any meeting. And I'm going to turn it back to the moderator.
Okay. David, that was in the first.
How about we redo our sidewalks?
So the sidewalks are in the Rockingham budget, and they're.
Made a mistake giving it to the town years ago, because we used to budget $2,000 a year. We did all our sidewalks. As soon as we did that, they might have done 100 feet here and there, but to me, it's totally failed.
Uh-huh.
So I think we should take it back
Okay.
and get them down.
So noted. I will tell you that Matt Brennan personally called and got the highway and the town manager out here and walked all the sidewalks in Saxtons River, which resulted in not a great big project, but a couple of really bad spots got work done. And I don't know how far $2,000 goes.
We have 2 miles of sidewalk.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So noted.
Ellen?
Just for clarification, when does the ARPA money have to be spent? What's the deadline?
So we have to make a decision. I believe it's by the end of 2024, and we have an additional 2 years to actually spend it out. Peter, you've got a better grasp of these things than I do sometimes. Is that
correct? 124.
Yeah. So we've still got another year of discussion and listening to people. And it would be nice to be very focused about how we spend it. And I think we're all agreed that it needs to be something out of the ordinary, something that's really important to the town. And it would be great. I mean, this money came out of the disaster that was those 3 years of COVID. So it would be great to address something like that. We are also allowed, if we want to throw our money into a Rockingham project or a Bellows Falls project.
I think it's just good to know what the deadlines are, so if people have ideas, they get them into you. And I think the project that is used on is the perfect project for it.
Any other comments, questions to the trustees?
I'll make the comment. You can make a comment? You had your hand up first.
Well, yeah. I'm gonna
In
talk about
answer,
I feel like I knew
in
what yours
answer
was.
to Dave Moore's question on the sidewalks, right now there's $75,000 in the sidewalk fund that's supposed to be for Saxon River sidewalks. Plus our banking bid, we paved all the roads and streets, most of them in Saxon River for 2 years. Now we're gonna transfer our time and effort to Bellows Falls for the next 2 years, but the bids came in lower than we expected, so there's extra money that's gonna be thrown into there. So it depends on time allowed that we will get some sidewalks done.
Okay,
And it'll probably be more than 300 feet.
thank you, Lou. Matt?
I'd like to speak about the ARPA funds. As was mentioned, it was my push to upgrade the.
Just so it's recorded.
Okay. I'm starting from the beginning. So regarding the ARPA funds, I did push to upgrade this rescue truck that we have in the village of Saxtons River, which is not owned by the village of Saxtons River. I think the association has purchased. This is their second one, third one. So no village taxes or town taxes have supplied the rescue truck that we currently have or have had. So getting a new one, I think, is very important. This money is divided up again, Village, Bellows Falls, Rockingham, Saxtons River. It's of my opinion that along with that the remainder of the funds go to help bring the needed equipment that the fire and rescue needs, so that they can take care of us when needed. I think there's air packs that the ones we have are 20-something-year-old hand-me-downs from Bellows Falls or Rockingham. I'm also on a fire equipment committee looking into doing grants and purchasing new fire trucks. The grant money is not there for upgrading of the stuff that we need here in Saxtons River. So again, I would like to see all the monies go to our fire safety here in Saxtons River.
Susan?
Hi, I'm Susan Still, and I know, Carl, that you had been interested in using ARPA funds for some of the water issues of Saxtons River. Is that water issue still on the table?
No, it's not. We did explore some of the funding options, and the bottom line is there would be funding if we wanted to put in a community drinking water system, but for the applications that we were looking at, primarily fire and sprinkler systems and so forth, that money was not available, grants were not available. And so we did not pursue it any further than that.
Okay.
I just had a quick question, I guess. Wonder if trustees.
Come forward so we can hear.
I just was wondering if trustees heard of MERP program, if anybody responded to you. So that is to municipal energy funds that will be available. And I heard you mentioned about the
boiler and all the other issues, so maybe we would like to explore those funds too. Thank you.
So MERP is Municipal Energy Resilience Project, and nobody calls it that, it's always MERP. It allows, it does a bunch of things, but it allows a municipality to have an energy audit of any buildings the municipality owns. Saxtons River owns 2 buildings, the wastewater treatment plant, which is relatively recently constructed. We've talked to Rob Wheeler about that plant. He thinks it's in great shape. There's no need to do an energy audit. We spend a lot of money heating the fire department, and we don't resent it for a minute. But that seems like the obvious place to have an energy assessment. And once you have the assessment, then the door is open for having grant-supported work done to tighten up the building. So we haven't yet made our application. It's a little bit open-ended, the process, and we've been focused on getting to annual meeting. But we intend to apply for that money. There is also a pot of money, I think it's $4,000 for general education around energy work. So you couldn't use it, for example, to pay for those amazing window inserts, the window dressers that Peter Bergstrom has been working on. It can't be used for things like that, but it could bring an educator in or pay for flyers that would talk about that. And we've been thinking that we might throw our lot in with Rockingham for that kind of educational project. But again, if you have comments, make them now or come to any of our regular meetings and make them then, because this isn't an issue right now. I believe that MERP money, and Inessa may know this, is also ARPA funds that are working their way through the system.
Thanks, Amy. Any other quick questions, comments? Yes, Jeff?
Mr. Moderator, would you care to see if there's any interest amongst the crowd for getting rid of the siren? Just as a friendly question.
This is a friendly question.
I'm just curious, does the village own the historical society?
No,
Who does?
the Historical Society.
Historical society. So it's not.
Historical Society.
And the new community building, the old church? No.
That's not by them.
Okay. Thank you.
Could you do some sort of thing to assess the siren impact? I mean, I'd be interested in that too. I mean, I know that there are good reasons and we could ask Art Smith to explain them. But I understand that people who live on the village.
Let me follow up, or and then I'll come to you. Jeff, what is it that you're asking?
Vermont has a very good system of alerts that you can sign up for, all manner of alerts, from silver alerts, amber alerts, fire, whatever it is. You can get them on your phone, sent directly to you. So it seems redundant and maybe a little archaic to also have the air raid siren go off. So,
You do get used to it, but I just a question.
Moderated. That siren's been in town for years. As a matter of fact, there's only one in town right now. The one at the fire station is down. That doesn't bother people on there now. That's mostly to alert you to watch out. There are going to be emergency responders coming through town. Clear the street. Get your kids off the street. Get your dogs out of the way. Because we're coming through because somebody in this room or somewhere else is in trouble. We need to have a clear street to get here and get out with our apparatus.
Understood.
Thank you.
Jeff, are you looking for a show of hands?
No,
I'd like a response then.
Thank you.
Okay, look.
Wait, a question about the sirens, and I have wondered, what is the impact of the siren on wildlife?
Hasn't bothered it so far. They just stay in the tower.
I really, and that's really a question, how does that affect especially the birds and the wildlife?
Hasn't been an issue.
So,
As a matter of fact, the other night we had a
Art,
rescue.
Art,
Sorry.
you just gotta make sure we're just holding to decorum. Your response comes to me, but then,
Doesn't seem to bother the wildlife. As a matter of fact, the other night we had a rescue call, and I had to wait for 3 deer to get out of the road. I could leave.
well, I have read some studies that, it does change the behavior of some birds. And it does that the loud noises within cities, sirens, etc., does change behaviors with our wildlife. So I just question that
okay.
also.
All right, good, thank you.
Is the siren always related though to a response from our truck? Because I mean, I live right across the street from it, and I don't see the truck moving when I hear the siren going on.
Yes. The only time it is not is when they do a weekly test.
So
Okay,
it's not for other, it's
Well,
only.
it's only for us.
Okay.
okay.
I'm
Nicole?
here. I'm also in response to that, but I've had other issues come up because of the sirens. I was hoping we could at least do time limits. Anything past a certain time, 8 o'clock is reasonable, but to 1 a.m. completely unreasonable. And it's not just for the surrounding areas, it's just because it is a resounding. And I'm not here to put my information out there, but it has caused a heart arrhythmia because of in me. So it is causing issues outside of just animals.
Okay. David?
Could it be a shorter cycle, Arthur, for the alarm? It's awful long. It really is awful long.
Yeah.
Right now, it is a shorter cycle. They used to go off 7 times.
Okay.
Peter?
Question that, the rumor has it that the siren goes off until someone responds. Is that correct?
No, that's not true.
Time limit.
Matt?
Question for Art, or it seems is the alarm connected to the fire alarms at the building itself, at the community center of the church? If there's a fire there, does that go off?
Yes. That if there is a fire or a fire alarm comes in for either the fire station or the church, because that's the one that houses our main siren, that alarm will go off continuously until someone responds to those alarms and figures out what's going on. So if you do hear it going off for longer than it normally does, please call 911. We've had issues where the one in the church has gone off. People have listened to it and done nothing. And it goes, and it will go continuously until someone calls and alerts us.
Ann?
Mr. Moderator, my point is that the people that are asking are the newer people. And I think it's because we came from places where this doesn't exist. And so the question about, does it clear the street, some of those things, I think an evaluation of whether it's really doing what you want it to do or not, versus we've just always had it, is worth an analysis. Because that question of, well, if it goes off and nobody answers, then it isn't doing what it's supposed to do. So there needs to be an education and an understanding and an explanation, and to some degree a verification that it does what it's supposed to do.
Susan?
On a related issue, Art Smith and I have been talking about providing some kind of village emergency preparedness, and we don't really know what kind, but this, there probably are lots of fire preparedness, flood preparedness, And I'm wondering whether this is something that the trustees might have some conversations about. Main Street Arts, I'm the chair of Main Street Arts, and we're really happy to have host village meetings. We're also the emergency relocation site for the elementary school, and Art recently had hazmat training in this room. So we'd like you to think of Main Street Arts as a private but civic building also. But I'm wondering if this is something that villagers would see a need for, is having some sort of training in the village, so that next time there's an Irene or a big fire or something and the roads are closed, we know what to do.
Okay. So noted. I guess I can't help but say, in the last snowstorm, we had people who were out of electricity for days, and we often wondered, how is their health? Vanessa?
Just a quick confirmation regarding your statement. Is there like emergency, usually in a town plan there is an emergency response, any kind of like a chapter regarding that? Do we have any kind of, for the village or rather belong to Rockingham? Like in town plan there's a chapter for emergency.
There is the town plan of Rockingham that has, I'm not sure what the chapter is actually labeled as.
Hazard mitigation.
Hazard mitigation.
Is there a part of, what to do in such situations, like a training and everything like that? Do we have, maybe we can confirm it. I think it's probably already in place. We just need to sort of, your point is very valid, to actually do something about it.
Okay. Did you ask?
I'm happy to send out the hazard mitigation plan. It appears to me that Rockingham is getting going on discussing this again, coming directly from that experience of the heavy snow. When I when I was elected to chair, Louise Loring sent me many files, and there is one on emergency preparedness, but I don't know my way around it. So it's probably time for us to consider these things as a board, and feedback would be helpful.
Margaret?
Yes, didn't Bellows Falls have something where they had go bags in the windows? They were advertising. I don't know if that was Bellows Falls or Rockingham.
It was part of Sustainable Rockingham, which is which is part of the working committee from the Action Take Rockingham Take Action town meeting about 3 or 4 years ago, and they came up with that idea. It hasn't continued that I know of. Laurel Green was spearheading that in Bellows Falls. Rose?
Yes, I just wanted to say that it feels like we've moved really far away from people's concerns about the siren. And I've lived in town for 30 plus years, and I find the siren pretty annoying too, and disturbing. If it goes off at 1 a.m. or something, and you have to get up early, or I've never lived anywhere that had a siren that alerted you to the fact that emergency vehicles were going to come by soon. When you see those flashing lights, you get off the road. That's what everybody does. So I just want to have sensitivity to if it's causing heart palpitations or whatever. I just want to give a nod to that and say I think those things are real and things to consider.
I think we're hearing a lot of concerns around the sirens, so I think the board is sort of well noted in terms of what to do. Peter and then David?
In regards to the emergency management plan, the last one that we've done for the town includes everybody in the town.
Town of Rockingham.
The villages, yes. It was done in 2018 and it has to be renewed every 5 years. Lo and behold, 2023, 5 years. And we are now currently reviewing that and going over it. It was posted on the website, rockdambf.org, but they took it down because they're gonna revise it and put it back on. So they'll tell you pretty much what to do. There is also another state hazard mitigation plan that comes out. That's a heck of a lot more information than that one. And that's got to do with flooding, major flooding and things like that. That's out there. I have copies of it, put them on board. That doesn't have to be reviewed, but it is out there. It's so long that I don't know why we don't, if we're putting it on the website or not. But the local plan would be on there as soon as we get it updated.
Can we get the 2018 plan?
Well, you could if it was on the website, but they took it down to
Yeah.
revise it because it doesn't contain all the new stuff with the storm and the Irene flooding and things like that. So that's going to be all added into it, and then we put back on.
So it's in the ether. Huh?
So you'll be able to refer to it and find
Okay.
out what it's supposed to do.
All right.
The simplest answer is call 911. You got a problem? Call 911.
David?
Well, two things. On the fire alarm, if you live where Wilma does, or Nicole, or Jeff, it's absolutely ear-shattering. Ear-shattering. I mean, if I'm at the store and that alarm goes off, it's like I've lost my hearing. It's really incredibly loud, dangerously loud. The other thing is, Amy, please to you, do you think we're going to tear down this red building? I mean, I know we had all those discussions, but I guess I'm supposed to ask the moderator.
Mr. Moderator, can I respond to that? So Susan could also respond to this. In the shortened version of the results of the planning that we went through with the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, we were all reminded that Main Street Arts owns the building. And the last line, the last page of the shortened version is the letter which the president of Main Street Arts read at the final meeting, which says that we're seeking a buyer and we want a buyer that will address the brownfield issues, that will address the fact that there are toxic elements in the building and that will make a plan that won't leave it here forever. We haven't seriously discussed taking it on as more village property. Make a motion. This is non-binding business and you can. Knowing that the will of the town was to create housing on that spot has been helpful. We haven't really pursued that as a board. We, as 5 individuals, we had mixed feelings. Was that our job, or was we reached out to Windsor Housing Trust, and they said too small. Even if we used the whole building for residential units, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, there aren't enough of those around apparently. You'd only have 12 units in there, and that's not the scale they work on. So we have received a communication from Meg Staloff asking if we wanted to pursue this with them. That's the BDCC, Brattleboro Development. Anybody know? Credit Corporation. Thank you. I live in this world of initials. And we could. Because it's a Main Street Arts property, it's unlikely, unless we hear a swelling of
Well, you just
interest.
put up a ton of red flags, hazardous site, brownfield. Nobody, I mean, you kidding me? Somebody's gonna.
Anybody that emails me to say, I'd like to start a business there, and that's happened. I'm thinking that'd be a great place for a business. I send them all those reports. I have them saved on my desktop, and I send them out just so people know what the assessment is so far. And I see Susan's hand, so I'm going to give it back.
Susan?
We did have a brownfield study done of the building, and it said that it was clean. However, they didn't excavate. And if you know the history of the village, and if you go inside there's a lot of mildew, but it's not heavy metals. If you know the history of the village, there was a gas station there. There were hair salons, all kinds of things that probably left some chemicals in that soil. So one of the options that we looked at was doing something on the surface, but there was not a lot of village interest in just having, a pavilion or something like that. If somebody's going to excavate and get down into that soil, there's surely brownfields issues there. So it's not quite as, it's not a building worth saving at all. The assessments that we have very clearly determined that. But it's not, I don't think it's quite as big a red flag as loaded with toxins. Amy, do you think?
I don't know. I just read the report.
Yeah, it was the brown, we do have the, if anybody wanted to see the brownfields assessment that we had many years ago when Margot was here. It said we didn't find anything, but we know there's stuff underground.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Mary?
This isn't about brownfields, but it's about brown stuff. This is a very dog-friendly town. And there's been a lot of discussion about the amount of dog poop deposited. It's a sidewalk issue too, around town. And what would it take for us to get a couple of those dispensers, the plastic bags, put around town? And then it begs the question of who picks up the bags from it. But just thought I'd throw that out there if there's anything that could be done to address that.
Okay.
Mr. Moderator.
Sure.
So I agree with that, but that doesn't also address the issue, if we're gonna get into the nitty gritty and the minutia here, of the animals running free. Within the village, the dogs running free within the village that are not leashed. Like a dog poop in my backyard when I don't own a dog, being trapped in my garage by an animal that has not been leashed, that's just been let out, that's aggressive. So I agree that we need to have, maybe some dispensers, but then also to address how do we control that, unleashed dogs.
Okay, let me get, or
Amy.
was this regard to?
So we do have a person in Rockingham who addresses unleashed dogs. His name is Cass Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T. And I don't have his number on me right now, but I can send it to you, Laura. But that's the answer for that one. And he, as far as I know, he does follow up. And he feels very strongly about unleashed dogs.
Thank you.
Nicole?
I know I've mentioned it, but just out of curiosity, what's realistically, is it an option to see a dog consistently loose? Obviously, people who have been reporting to him, are we able to have him then contact you and be like, this is the fourth offense, they still won't build a fence, they don't bring their dog in? Is there anything you guys can do as a village to imply a certain small $25 fee, and then you guys can use it towards your funds? I mean, something that's realistic, that's not going to hurt anybody's pocket, but hey, that can go to the village, you know what I mean? Something that will cause more accountability when it comes to things like that.
It's quite a bit, it's a comment. Okay.
So I'll look to Carl and Matt. I think we'd have to pass an ordinance for that. And since Rockingham has one, I mean, we like the idea of using it. The thing with the ordinances is they always have implications beyond what you think they do. So we'd go that route first, I think, before we created our own. But I've noted it, and we'll look into it.
All right, any other comments, points? Peter?
In regards to the stations, as the lady next over here wanted, the town has two of them, I believe, in Bells Falls. One's by the library, and I can't remember what the other one is off the top of my head, but they should be put on property, not on personal property. I don't think anybody wants a food station on in front of their house. Think of where, if you want to do it, and I think, Matt, the joint board coming up in May would be the proper time to discuss that with all three boards. I mean, and then we can approach it, and the town crew picks the bags up.
Wow.
They come around and pick it up, so I would assume that would have to meld into the same situation, so. Just think where you're like out at the park here, if you want to do it like a park, you probably want it over by the bridge, not in the middle of the park. Kind of look at it in an inconspicuous place and then cute little stations, you know. So something you ought to be thinking about, they'll probably get demand or something, so bring it to let ideas what they want to put on. So.
Okay, it's been a great sounding. Mike?
Yeah, so just to remind everybody that Green Up Day is coming, the first Saturday in May. Actually, that whole week you can pick up trash. This is a state sanctioned event, and where you can pick up roadside trash and anything that's been thrown over the bank to get the area cleaned up. My wife Margot is now the town's Green Up Day coordinator. I will let her know that you're on. So if you have any ideas of places that particularly need attention, you can get in contact with Margot. And the Green Up Day bags, the official Green Up Day bags are going to be available in the same places: the Village Market, Leasize Market, J&H Hardware Store, and the Town Hall. The places you can put the trash is right along the road where you're cleaning up, or the town garage in Bells Falls, or the town garage on 103. There is, just like last year, there's no longer a truck here in Saxtons River because there were just people who were using that truck to bring their old tires and just fill up the truck with old tires at the town's expense. And so the town made a decision last year to not have a truck out here anymore. But you can still leave stuff along the road, and the town crew will pick it up on that Monday.
Look,
I
yes.
just wanted to publicly acknowledge the people who have been working on the park. You know, it's no small feat. It seems like it's a small space and not a big deal. But Margaret and the park team have just been doing a really, really amazing and thoughtful job. They're planting new things. They're thinking about butterflies. There are benches to come. And I just want to make sure we publicly acknowledge the people who are doing all that work for the village.
Anything else?
So I just want to point out that page 11 and page 12 in your town report has information on how to get hold of not only us, but also our Rockingham people. So if you have a zoning question, there's a number to call for zoning. If you have a town manager question, you can call the town manager. So just remember that information is in your town report. Some people are more used to paper. It's also on that rockinghamvt.org website. That's a great website. And the trustees have a page on it. The Rockingham Select Board has a page on it. Departments, committees, it's a really good way to get information.
Okay. Well,
I'm wondering if there's any ordinance or any regulation or anything that addresses the number of unregistered vehicles on a property? Got me all up.
State law.
somebody on the board want to handle that? Peter?
I'll give it a shot. That subject came up in the town, and one of the listers told me that they can have up to 7 vehicles on their property.
Unregistered?
It's close to running a junkyard.
Unregistered?
We have one in Bells Falls. I sat at my fishing buddy's house the other day and watched. The only thing that happened was to do a good job of slowing traffic down, because there are some who are parked in the road, the other half are parked in the street, so you have to kind of spread your way through the thing. It's but that's what I understand. Last time I knew, the state only had $1 in their state junkyard ordinance. That doesn't enforce much.
Because I think that there's you know, an issue that might be coming up. It could be another a brownfield eventually.
Oh, yeah.
Having so many unregistered vehicles on a property.
That's correct.
What you can do, I think we all know the property. But you can contact the planning director, who's now interim planning, because I know the old planning director, Chuck Wise, looked into this, and there were certain conditions under which he was aware of, that at times they were in violation, then it was cleaned up. So it's incumbent, I think, upon us to understand what those conditions were and to monitor that. So we can follow up on that.
I think that the village should look at it in general. Because it can become a big problem.
Yes.
We actually did, when I was on the trustees, we looked at that property, and I think Peter is right, it's like 5 to 7 years of unregistered, unfortunately.
They had what?
Yeah, and actually those people were approached, it was checked.
And everything's okay?
Legal, everything's legal.
Yeah.
Believe me, I know, they're all legal.
Mark?
Is it possible for the village to have an ordinance that is more restrictive than the state?
I would tread very carefully. We've looked into some ordinances, but I think for something like this, you want real expertise. And personally, I've been delighted that we have typically a whole person that does zoning issues out of Rockingham, and we're included in that. Right now, as Guy mentioned, that position is somewhat vacant, so we have one person doing both development and interim planning, and I think that's not ideal. I don't know legally whether we can have that one that's more restrictive, but I suppose we could look into it.
Abigail?
If such a thing came about, they would be grandfathered. It would be an ex post facto law, which is unconstitutional.
Thank you. Peter?
Point of fact, the town does have an unsafe building and nuisance ordinance, and that technically could probably be classified as a nuisance. If the problem becomes then, how do you enforce it? And as you mentioned, Chuck's been out there, you gotta catch the person at it. If somebody reports it, they have to be willing to go to court to testify, blah, 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 and it just kind of hangs out there. It's tough to enforce it.
Doesn't mean we can't look into that. So, Abigail?
Is that property responsible for the huge amount of just explosive traffic noise going down Main Street on occasion, like they're testing something? No? Okay. What is that? It's not the fire engines.
All right. Any other quick questions or comments?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Before we do, I'd like to say one thing. I'd like to thank Rick Holloway and Sarah Campbell for the work that they have done. Even though they are not here, I think they need to be recognized for the great work that they have done. So thank you all. Okay, all those in favor of adjourning? I'm not even going to ask for opposed.
This meeting was recorded by Falls Area Community Television, located at 1 Hospital Court, Bellows Falls, Vermont. If you would like a copy of the meeting, our phone number is 802-463-1613, or email us at fact810@gmail.com. Falls Area Community TV, keeping government honest.